from her knows that this man does supply like me. You know, don't I don't.
And open the meeting. For select board members in attendance, Carol called in. She was delayed, but she'll be here in 10 or 15 minutes. So we will call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Public comments for items not on the agenda for discussion, not action. Any public comments? Evening, Jackie.
Good evening. Would this be okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Right here.
Yep, perfect.
You may know that the stop sign at the top of Bennett's Cove has been removed again. And maybe I don't know, I didn't get out to evaluate.
Thank you for the information. It was there, I know, 2 days ago because somebody ran it and almost hit me on my bicycle, and I stopped and had a chat with them. And they apologized, but that was just a couple days, 3 days ago.
Yeah, I only noticed it in the last.
Thank you. Yeah. Other public comments? Okay, moving on. Town reports. Dika?
Hello, everybody. So there are several things on the town reports, and there's a couple of other department reports. Transfer station, code enforcement, and public works. I'll go through the TA report, and then if you have any questions on the other ones, just let me know. The first thing on the TA report is hiring. We have successfully hired and positions have been accepted for a bookkeeper position, a part-time public works employee, and we do have a temporary parking attendant that's filling in until we hopefully will have somebody who applies for it as a permanent position. So that's good news. We will keep the parking attendant and probably at this point, the public works employee positions out just because we were not able to fill a full-time public works employee position. Just to see what, if anything, we can get to fill in the further gap that we have in the lack of the coverage. Any questions about that? Next thing is committee members needed. So finance committee information has been added to the town website. There are 2 members in order for that committee to start working and preparing for any budget related discussions that are very quickly coming up. We do need at least 1 more member to be on that board of the public. There are also Board of Adjustment Appeals that's missing 2 employees. Transfer station, we have 1 applicant, so it would be great if we had 2 other people join that committee so they can begin some work. Anyone that's interested in volunteering or knows somebody, just please let us know at the office or contact me directly. It would be great to have some of those positions filled. Parking and traffic update. So the town has received a lot of positive feedback, a lot of negative feedback like circulated through the town, but we had not verbally or directly received that in the town office. So there was a lot of positive feedback received about the small changes that were done at the park. The no parking and the loading and offloading is now not in effect. So as you can see, there are cars back parked in that area. The sheriff had a lot of feedback about how well that worked. And after a few days, people really picked up on the idea and were moving their vehicles into the no parking spaces. We did hear back some feedback and collected feedback about things such as more handicap spaces. And we're kind of just keeping a collection of those things, and hopefully in these next few weeks, there will be an additional agenda item to discuss what went well, what didn't, what changes and improvements could be made for the future to further try to improve the safety of the traffic flow at the Stone Pier as we're working to a more permanent long-term solution. So FEMA and storm damages is the next thing on the list. I really don't have a whole lot report than the last time that I reported to you. Shebig will be receiving a new contact next week. I am still waiting to hear back from MEMA, and I do plan to follow up with them this week to see about them connecting with us to have a discussion relevant to South Shore Drive. I did hear back from them, but as far as a date to meet, I have not heard back, so I will follow up on that this week. And I'm hoping that now that we have an additional employee, we can move in the direction of potentially having some repair work done on East Shore Drive before any additional storms hit and further wash out that road or make it more difficult to pass. And the only other thing worth mentioning that is new from when I wrote this particular report is, as of today, 2 categories for the FEMA were submitted. So category A was debris removal and category B was emergency repair work, so to speak. Those particular categories was really relevant to public works, driving around the island, removing debris from a lot of right-of-way to shore areas. Some of the emergency temporary work that was done directly post storms. Each of those categories they are reimbursable about is about $6,000–7,000. So they're not huge amounts, but it's just 2 things that are now checked off and finalized, and it's fully in the hands of FEMA to then determine whether it will be reimbursed for that or not. As far as the long-term things relevant to South Shore Drive and other areas, that's still ongoing, and we really have not made significant progress with that. Any questions?
What's the rough amount of category A and B?
So I don't remember the exact numbers. Category A, I believe, is 6,800 and change, and category B is in the $7,000. So the numbers aren't huge, but when you add the labor, the use of town equipment and the hours and things like that, it does accumulate. So it's better than nothing.
Yep, thanks.
So next thing is just a brief GEI and Bennett Cove update. So a brief update was received from GEI on August 28th. So the email that was in the packet was the only update that we had received. I did contact CMP and ask them if they could provide a written statement, which I received, which I forwarded to GEI about their opinion relevant to. So GEI had been forwarded and read the emails from the attorney representing Bennett's Cove residents, And the only thing that was alarming to them that they wanted to follow up on was the CMP, the line. And so I contacted, reached out to Lenny. Lenny reached out to the person who is in charge of the communications from CMP, and then they sent an email, and I just forwarded that email directly to GEI. And so as of this morning, I believe this morning or this afternoon, I was CC'd on a communication, which I will forward to you, that GEI did submit information to DEP and another agency, which I haven't had time to thoroughly read the communication, but they did submit a letter to the state agencies to request for a meeting to discuss the particular issue around Bennett's Cove and barging, and ultimately what they were hired to do. So any questions about that?
Have you received a response yet to that request?
From DEP? No, that was, I believe, it was either this morning or this afternoon. I can tell you, but nothing has been received from DEP. And yeah, so what it is, it's a pre-application meeting request, and my phone won't load. Yeah, it's not loaded, so.
Would it be helpful if we asked the surveyor to locate the cable on the survey? To add that to his CAD drawing that we could then share with the consultant?
We don't have the surveyor doing any work relevant to Bennett's Cove at this point.
Right, at this point, but they did a while ago. They surveyed the road.
They surveyed their road, but where the cable is, it's in the water, which is.
But they had the pins physically, and they have the pins in their files. So the next time they were out here, which may or may not be for us, if they could locate that cable on that drawing, that would be helpful perhaps to the consultant for the work that they're doing. If they knew where the cable was in technical engineering terms, that would be helpful.
The CMP provided the information telling them where it was located, relevant to it. And I mean, I'm happy to forward that email to you. But what it was is, you know, rather than me trying to explain or figure out, late this afternoon, I received a communication from a resident in Bennett's Cove, once again requesting all communications, which I've sent everything at this point. The only thing that's new is the CMP communication and the one that's in the packet. That's why I asked, because I wasn't going to make any exception, and CMP, and I forwarded the email. I wasn't reiterating the words. I just forwarded directly, so it's coming directly from them. And I did not receive any additional follow-up or questions or anything. So I would think that they were happy with what they received, but I'm happy to follow up and see if they were looking for more information.
Yeah. You could ask them if it would help to have that located on the survey. Or
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. It might also be helpful to indicate if there's been any incursions, if you will, into that pipeline. If there's been any breaches of it or any problems with it. I mean, the fact is, it's pretty far out there.
I think that's ultimately what GI was aiming to find out, is at the location. And in the email, what was stated was it is not being impacted by barging as the way it is. If the town were to proceed with a permanent ramp, they would ultimately work with the town to try to figure out or move it, so then all parties could be involved. But
With the GEI, they're doing a potential plan for Bennett that will be submitted to DEP, is that correct?
No. No, so what they're doing is they're working with all of the agencies, so a NERPA permit would be required to submit an application. So this is a pre-application discussion to see if it could even be permittable in that. So no permit is being submitted. It's to ultimately determine if that location is even possible. Including all of the agencies that would be involved in making that decision. And then at the same time, they're also looking at, which we had given them a map of the town right-of-way areas around the island. And when they came out here a number of weeks ago, I drove them to each location, and so they documented themselves and photographed each location. It included, Coleman's Cove, it included Sunset, it included Central Landing, a lot of the different areas.
Okay, so in the email, when she mentions working on concept design plans, that's just concepts for what would be, that what you just described was my understanding,
Yes.
that.
Which email are you referring to?
Pardon me?
Which email?
The email that was in the packet?
Yeah.
So my understanding is I would think that they would have to have some kind of a general idea of what the design could be in order for the agencies to have an answer of it could be permittable or no, it couldn't be.
That's very, thank you.
Any other questions? No, I'll ask about that. So public safety building forecaster article. What this is really just as an FYI to the board and to the community. A couple of times forecaster called and they were very eager and interested in writing an article about the new public safety building. I was very honest in terms of the fact that I thought that it was a really premature article to write, just because it hasn't even gone to a public discussion for a town vote or for a town consensus. It's a committee working on a design of what possibly could be something that they could bring in front of the public. I also explained to them that there's many other projects that are also needing to be prioritized at the same time, but the writer was adamant that it wasn't up to her to decide what she writes. She was given an assignment, and so I provided the information and also encouraged her. And I do know that she reached out to several of the members on the board, the facilities committee, because I thought that if she was going to write an article, it was important that she ask questions from the people that did the work to bring it to where it is now. So if you see an article in the forecaster, that's why it's there. Any other questions? And then the last thing that is on the TA report is dredging update. All in all, it's really good news. So I received a call from Jordan Macy at the end of August with an update. They had 2 claims that they were working to close out. One was initially an $800,000 claim from Burnham, which was the very first dredging company that we used. The other was a small claim from Proc Marine. The good news is Proc Marine, that has been settled, so there will be no payment coming from the town or from Army Corps. And Burnham has agreed upon $158,000 settlement, which is a big difference from $800,000. So all in all, it's good news. At this point, we're hoping to get a written statement. He said he would like to get it to me by October, November, so sometime in the fall. In the meantime, they're also working to try to figure out how to finalize the eelgrass mitigation issue. So there was planting done, it was unsuccessful, and at this point, what Army Corps is trying to do is receive credit for the time and the funds that went into that to offset the cost. And so they're planning on arranging a meeting in October to try to figure that out. The goal for Army Corps is to have our case closed out by the end of the year. At this point, the good news is that there will be no additional needed town meeting votes to the taxpayers for any additional funds unless something drastic happens. And if anything, the money that we have sitting in the dredging reserve account could come back for a town vote to reallocate to something else. But that's, you know, we won't know that until it happens. But where things currently are, it looks like that is the more realistic option than paying more money.
Liza?
What is the ballpark that was allocated for eelgrass mitigation?
The number that's coming up off the top of my head is like in the $500,000 range, but that would be for the full amount. The town would be responsible for 10% chunks of it.
Eelgrass.
This became a very expensive multi-million-dollar project.
Eelgrass is as you know, huge issue these days. And disappearing rapidly, but of that 500, I believe, like the rest of the contract, the town, like you said, 10%.
Yeah, so what they do is it's 210, so it ends up being 20% of whatever the ultimate cost is, but they're very specific in saying it's 10% installments, which.
Okay, thank you.
And we had set aside how much for that already for our portion?
I'd have to look at the, I didn't dwell into all of the final numbers. When I received this, I just wanted to make sure I put the update into you.
Did Jordan give you any sort of expectation for timeliness of finishing it up?
So he did say that their goal is to finish this by the end of the year. And in October, they're planning to have a meeting relevant to the eelgrass to try to finalize that. And then October, November is when he's hoping that the finalization and the quarterly report could be provided showing the final numbers for the dredging. So hopefully, if all works out, by the end of this calendar year, we could be done with the dredging project.
And hopefully before we finalize our budget for FY20.
I think, yes, I think that will definitely
Good, great.
happen. So that's everything I have for the TA report. Does anybody have any questions, which will most likely be directed to the department heads relevant to anything that was in a transfer station or a code enforcement officer or the fire department report?
Questions, Stephen?
Yeah.
Eliza?
On the transfer station report from Jeff. What is the holding tank?
The holding tank is the tank that holds water. So where the two trash compactors are and where the recycling compactor is, where that open space is, where usually the cardboard, there is a tank underneath there. And so when the place gets cleaned and washed out, water runs in, and the way it's designed very poorly. And so it's got several inches of sand. So we're having to pump it more frequently. And so we're now looking to see if there's a special company. The septic tank company will not pump out sand. So we need to try to find a special company that would pump out sand, which we have yet to find.
The holding tank is there because the water obviously would be considered hazardous waste if we let it flow out into the water tank.
Okay, thank you.
Another option that could fix that problem would be to pave the driveway area around where the transfer station is located. That would obviously be a huge cost, but then you'd have less sand working its way into the drain, but that's all future planning for the engineering of that building, replacement of that building, eventually, all that. Other questions about the departmental reports? I just wanted to make note of the code officer's report. It was very complete. First one we've had from the new guy, a good summary of the permits issued. I think things are beginning to speed up a little bit in that area. Good.
And there was he had planned to provide the July and August. And so we do have all of the list of all the permits through, current. Somehow we ended up, not having it make it into the packet, but that is, I believe, on the code enforcement officer webpage, it's through August.
Other questions?
No, but I'll make a comment about the report about rescue. That's very good progress to have that connection with the Coast Guard and the Falmouth Fire Chief and who else was it in Long Island about any issues similar to the situation this summer with the person who had fallen out of the boat. So there's a much better plan for cooperation and notification based on that meeting. And so that's very good news indeed for rescue and safety of the Navy.
Also a very good report. Most of the department reports this month look great.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I'll pass that along. Thank you.
All right. Any questions from the public on the town administrator's reports, departmental reports? Okay, moving along to regular business, item 24-076, to make the following annual municipal appointments. Because you want to.
So these appointments are usually done at the beginning of July. The reason that they're on here now is majority of these particular appointments are now staggered throughout the year because of the dramatic turnover that we've experienced in the last year. And so it's made it difficult for us to figure out who was appointed where. And so I just wanted to put it on the agenda so they're all at the same time and they'll be good through June 30th. And then that way we could start all over again. So they're all consistent and at the same time.
And do we need to read each one of these? Is that what we do?
I think in the past it was just
You can just approve
As
as
written.
written.
So we'd entertain a motion. David?
Yeah, I would move. Should I read each of these? Probably we should for the record. I move that we make the following annual municipal appointments. Treasurer, tax collector, FOA, administrator, and road commissioner, Victoria Wood. Town clerk, registrar, and voters, and deputy tax collector, Krista Hayward. General assistance administrator, Victoria Wood. Animal control officer, Stephen Alpon. Fire chief, Ralph Monroe. Harbor master and shellfish warden, Gennaro Balzano. Tax assessor, David Ledoux and Kathy Malloy sharing that responsibility. Code enforcement officer, building inspector, electrical inspector, plumbing inspector, and addressing officer, Paul Demers, and local health officer, Anita Anderson.
Thank you, David. Is there a second? Second by Eliza. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 24-077 to approve the following municipal appointments. Same thing. Different person, right? Is that correct? Or what's the difference with this
Yeah,
one?
what's the difference? I was wondering the same.
So you're appointing me as the treasurer, but then you're appointing the treasurer's appointment of the deputies.
Yeah, I understand. Does anyone care to make a motion relative to 24-077?
I'll make a motion to approve the municipal appointments as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by David. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, thank you. 24-078 to discuss the proposed RFP for marine infrastructure and take any necessary action. Like you'll see in the packet, there is a very well put together RFP. This is based on earlier conversations and movement by the board to strongly consider outsourcing the maintenance and repairs of the marine infrastructure to have that done professionally, given the age of some of our equipment and given the increasing effects of storms, that kind of thing. Vika, anything to add on the RFP?
No, what I, put in the memo is pretty much all I have. I think at this point, the board just needs to determine and decide what they want for an RFP, and then we would advertise that and collect anybody that is interested, and then it would come back to the board to make a decision on who the board would want to hire to proceed with taking over for that particular job.
And Herb, I assume you're here on behalf of Coastal Waters?
Yep.
Anything to add, comments?
No, I will say that we, the Coastal Waters Commission, focused on the task list more than anything else.
Okay.
This is your document, nothing in there that is changing.
Yep.
Vika has the Word document.
Okay, thank you. And Carol, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, so big guy sent some comments to you and Justin today. Did you look at those?
I briefly looked at them, but not thoroughly.
So I guess just to run through it for the board's benefit, the primary comments that I had, I did it as, and it's in the document. I'm a little concerned that the time frame of, which would start November 1st, I think we need to start this contract closer to October 1st. And I would recommend we accelerate the time frame. And I proposed that in Justin's comment back was, he basically said all the comments and made it okay with him. It sounded like it was a text message. But I think November 1st is pretty late to start to expect somebody to inspect the floats, remove the floats, do all that. And I think October. So I think what I suggested was that we change the things due, for the last week of September there, the 23rd and 25th, that Coastal Waters reviews it at the meeting on the 26th. The select board will award a contract at our October 2nd meeting, which gives us a whole nother month. Because if I was a contractor bidding on that, I would be pretty happy that I would have to have all of them in 4 weeks from the time the contract's awarded. That's one recommendation. The other thing that, the scope of work says that the infrastructure will be brought to the public safety building. And I asked Justin, does that mean somebody can't, does that mean the person has to provide the equipment to bring it to the public safety building, as in a crane truck and trucks, or, who's, then later on in the thing, it says that the town could assist. So I think it's just a little bit unclear what the vision is. Maybe Herb can elaborate on how this stuff is going to get moved, who's going to move it, and whose equipment is going to move it. And then relative to that, is there an option that the contractor could haul them via water to their facility, which is what people often do, and work on them at their own facility as opposed to working on them at the public safety building? If it's not a non-island contract, I think it would be very disadvantageous to have that requirement. So those were my primary suggestions, and this was really asking for a cost estimate for the projects, for the services, and I think that's a little, I'm concerned that we're just not going to get anybody to bid with that kind of a requirement. And my suggestion is we make this a request for qualifications, we ask for rates. I think we'll be lucky to get 1 or 2 contractors to bid on this, and so I think we should make it as appealing. The contract itself can spell out the details, but I think in order to select a contractor, I'd recommend that we do a more like an RFQ. The other thing was, which I did discuss with Vika, is I think it's important because we're basically contracting departmental services to a third party normally kind of been done by Public Works, so I think Vika has to be the point person. Sort of a mix here between the Coastal Waters Committee and Vika, and I think all communication would need to go through Vika, this is a contracted service. And Coastal Waters would be in the loop, but they wouldn't be kind of the point person on the communication. So those are my primary, I guess coming from the frame of mind that, I'm concerned that there aren't going to be a bunch of people jumping to, unless somebody knows something that I don't. I don't know that we have a lot of people interested in this, and so I would rather not be left with nobody. So as flexible as we can be, see who's interested, and then work out the details in the contract. Then I would assume all of it would be some insurance requirements in the contract. Those were the major things, so. And I sent those edits to Mika and Justin, and Justin's comment was, all good points, will work to make it better if the board wants changes. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Other comments from the board? I feel like those are all valid points and valid suggestions. Vika, what do you think?
I agree. I had, in talking to Herb about this, one of the concerns I had was the time frame of whether we would get anything between now and October even to us. But then, the similar concern just on the other end of it. So I think that we won't know until we try.
Right, and as a contractor myself, it's a lot easier to respond to an RFP where you send your rates, your qualifications, here I am, let's talk about what you want to hire me for the job. As opposed to preparing a proposal with a cost estimate that you might be frankly held to. I just don't think they would know. They have to come here and look at everything. I just don't think, we're hiring a service, we just have to have faith that it's a decent service, and if we get burned the first year, we can, adjust. I do think I asked Vika this morning where the money would come from, and maybe you could answer that question for the board.
So ideally, this is something that would come out of Public Works contracted service. The particular line item isn't very heavily funded. We did contract out to have several culverts replaced, so that particular line item, I'm not sure where it stands at this point. I haven't found a specific reserve account that this would be applicable for, and so at this point, I would be more inclined to see what the proposal is and what the costs are to then make a recommendation of, I feel comfortable putting it into the contracted service from Public Works, or this is more relevant to, we'll most likely need a special town meeting type of a thing to secure the extra funds because we will go over budget in that particular department. Until those numbers come in, I don't feel comfortable giving you a recommendation one way or another.
So question, Vika, if we were to follow the suggestions that Carol has offered, and in particular turn it into an RFQ as opposed to request for quotes, if the sense of the board is to move that direction, will you have what you need to issue the RFQ and get it out, or do we need to come back to another meeting? I'm thinking about the timeliness. A big part of Carol's point is bringing the timeliness forward, so we don't want to delay this till the next meeting.
If the board is in support of how this is written with the suggestions, I can clean those suggestions up and have it be on the MMA website and wherever else you think tomorrow.
Carol, will that work for you?
That works for me, and that I think Coastal Water should.
I was heading there, yeah. Any other?
The only other thing I just saw, there is a infrastructure maintenance plan that's referenced in here, and I think it would be smart to have that sent, have that finalized, sent to the board, have the board adopt it, so that that's what the contract would be kind of operating.
Right, we could vote on that at the next meeting. Yeah.
And that's been posted on the site.
Right, but it would be good to have it adopted by the select board. Endorsed by the Coastal Water. It's a draft right now,
Right. Yeah, I just want to let you know, if you want to look at it, we're doing it. Supposed
Okay. Thanks, Carol. Any other comments from the board on that approach of adopting this and empowering the town administrator to move forward? Carol?
I just have a question for Coastal Waters. What is your vision of, whether this work takes place in public works building, whether the individuals provide all the equipment to remove the clothes, or whether the town is party to that process? Like, what is the vision?
I don't think there is one vision. I think it's going to be a question of, what equipment people have that might respond to this and what their situation is. Some of the people who work on docks don't seem to be actually located on the water, so they might prefer just bringing it up here with our boom truck, or maybe we can hire somebody local to drive the boom truck down. I don't know. It's very much up in the air, in terms of what contractors would be interested in doing, what they have for equipment, and facilities. So I think I totally agree with your point that the more flexible and open we can be, the better. And certainly with just a few word changes, we can change the control flow so that, depending on coastal waters for the reporting aspect. The intent of that was to reduce burden on the staff. And can't remember the other points. The time is the time. And what we did was try to look back from. I mean, it's usually November before the fall, and often November before the fall. So that's we started in November 1st. Your time frame is fine. If we don't get any responses in the next 3 weeks, well, it's only 3 weeks, so pretty likely we'll get responses in 3 weeks.
I think we might have to recruit.
Well, we have made a list. Justin has a list just off of Google in the area. There's probably 4 or 5 people that say they work on floats and docks, and some have cranes, some don't. And Justin had a few other ideas, and we'll pass those along to Vika, and she can make a decision whether she wants to target those people as well.
Personally, I don't think adding another month to the response time.
You probably are.
Yeah. So is the sense of the board that we ask the town administrator to move forward and then see what we get back, do some recruiting, get the list of names from Justin? That work for you, Vika?
Yeah, the only clarifying question I have is, I have the email with your comments. Do you want the language to be specific to say, or allow the flexibility of, and or as far as working on them on island or bringing them, so then it's bringing in more of an open opportunity?
Yeah, I would just add to that comma or another, approved site or another appropriate site.
Because custom is, as you mentioned, not on the water anymore, so they're gonna have to pull it out of the water somewhere. Pulling it out here instead of dragging it for 2 hours might be preferable to them if it was them.
It's going to be a cost associated with taking it all in South Portland.
Yeah. Other contractors might not even have an on-the-ground facility on the mainland, might prefer to work on them at the owner's. So yeah, keeping it open and flexible seems to be our best bet.
Agreed.
And I'm thinking the contract, we might want to specify the date certain that will have to be out, so that we have an.
Yes.
That could be a contractual.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Comments from the public on that discussion? Nope. Any other comments from the board? All right.
Can I make one more?
Yes, please.
Because it occurred to me that, and I think I mentioned this in something, but I don't know if you've all heard it. The coastal water still believes that the best solution is a local solution for this, the most cost effective, the one that's going to be able to respond to emergencies the best is a local solution. But we don't have that right now, that option right now. So we're responding to the discussions that you make about that. So I don't think the commission would like to see this be a forever thing, but we have to work with what we have. So
Okay. All right. Noted. All right. Good.
The only other thing is, do you feel inclined to make a motion to authorize me to advertise this? Or do you feel comfortable with just letting me do it and then bringing you back whatever
I'm comfortable
comes
with you
into me?
bringing it back when it comes back.
I would just recommend you maybe run it by coastal water before you actually post it. Probably don't read it, but I mean, I do think somebody from coastal water should read it.
I think you are right on.
Moving on.
Yeah, another set of eyes.
Really appreciate the quick work on turning it around. Carol, thank you for that level of marital involvement. 24-080, to hear an update about the visit with the town of Yarmouth.
78.
We're on
70.
24-079, thank you, Carol. To discuss the proposed contract from Custom Float Services Incorporated for a new float and take any necessary action. There is a proposal for a new float in the packet. There is information about grant funding. Vika, anything to add to what's already in the packet? Or do you have a suggested motion in the memo? Yeah.
Yep, so the contract is included. If you read the memo, it should be pretty self-explanatory. I did connect with Justin today. And he said that he had spoken to Custom Floats and, they are, building the one that was authorized last year. And they are ready to build, the other one once they've received a signed contract. So if the board wants to proceed with this, the suggested motion would give you the authority to sign the contract and expend the 25% match. And we did get the confirmation that we received the grant. We haven't physically received the money, but that would be everything that would be needed to move this along.
Comments from the board?
Which one is this replacing?
It's more of a rotation issue.
It would be the next one in line. We're going right from the ramp, which was last year's, then the second one should be this year's, and we're going to break down. It's fine, so.
Carol?
Is there an ATA on the last one?
From what Justin has said, it sounds like they might be a one package delivery at this rate.
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
I would imagine that relates to the amount of work that was thrown at them after the storms last winter. Or they're behind.
And hopefully they could be done before the next round of storms.
Well, it'd be out of the water, but yeah. Any comments from the board? You care to make a motion? David?
I move to authorize the town to advertise the RFP for marine.
Oh, no, we're on one. We're on a different agenda item.
You're absolutely right. Okay, somebody else will do it.
I make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to enter into an agreement with Custom Float Services for their 10 by 25.
Could I offer a friendly amendment to include the language and to authorize the expenditure of no greater than $37.50 from the reserve account called grant matching 9040? Would that be okay with you, Carol?
Is it 7,000?
There's a suggested motion in the memo. So the 7,000 is what they need for a down payment. $3,700 is what it's gonna cost the town, and that's just the grant matching.
Take the written motion as it. Fix that, to authorize the town administrator to sign a contract with Custom Float for the construction of the new float, authorizing the expenditure of greater than 3,750 from the reserve account grant match 9740.
9040.
9040.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by David. Any discussion from the board?
No, it's not me.
Richard, thank you. Wow. My apologies. Any comments from the public on this action regarding a new float, second new float? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, unanimous? Thank you all. Okay, moving on to item 24-080 to hear an update about the visit with the town of Yarmouth relevant to the Cousins Island Pier and take any necessary action. If you'll take a look in your packet, you'll see that Vika and I representing Shabig and Matt Ridgway representing CTC and the town administrator from Yarmouth along with their town engineer and their head of public works met over at the Cousins Pier to discuss a range of topics, starting with the analysis that was done of the pier before the storms, and then proceeding through the damage that was done to the storms on into some video that Matt had to share that actually shows the timbers raising off of the vents during that storm, which he was going to share with Yarmouth directly. The report from the engineering company titled Preliminary Design Report, Cousins Island Yard, more goes into great detail, and then they have 4 recommended proposals. Proposals 1, 2, 3, and 4. Their proposal, well, I'll stop there. You got anything to add from the meeting?
No, if you read the memo, it should summarize it pretty well. So this particular design report, it's the first time that we are seeing it and the first time you're seeing it. It's different from what was presented to us last winter, which was an assessment of the pier. And so this is something that is new. The one thing worth adding is Stephen Johnson, which very weird to get that email come through. He did agree and suggest to come to the select board meeting to be able to answer any questions that this board might have about this particular report to help the board make a better decision in terms of which direction you feel most comfortable to proceeding. He does it in his he has it in his calendar to come to the next board meeting if the board is okay with it. So this was just kind of on here for you to get familiar with it, get an idea with it in terms of what are the anticipated possible costs and suggestions. And then he's happy to come to further elaborate and answer any questions that might come up from the board.
Any comments from the board? Well, Liza.
Well, thank you. When I'm reading the fact that in their budget, they're talking about alternative 2 for a cost of 133, and that's an anticipated longevity of 30 to 40 years. Alternative 3 is 150, so $17,000 more, with an anticipated longevity of 75 years. So right off the bat, I'm like, why are they looking at alternative number 2 when 3 seems like a wiser choice?
And the answer for that is alternative 3 would have a crib that lasts longer than the anticipated life of the rest of the pier. So we would be locked into designing the rest of the replacement pier around that crib. And at that time, even in a normal situation, to some degree, that's tying the hands of the design in the future. On top of that, the concept of sea level rise. So that was the reason they didn't recommend going. That was one of the reasons they didn't recommend going with 3 versus 2. The other reason was the potential uncertainty about how much parking will be available in the future on Cousins Island and other alternatives for parking that might be available within that 25-year time. That's not any kind of concrete rejection of number 3. It's just that was the discussion.
Very good.
Carol, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I guess it's along the same lines, if I understand correctly, this has no
sea level rise because LNC really built in. It's not an increase in elevation. And then they make a recommendation that, if I understand it correctly, using the turnaround as the potential access to a future pier. That's what it says. And so I guess so there is a shorter term solution that's 24,000 and with a longevity of 5 years. And I guess I feel like the jury's out for me because I don't know if I want to spend that much money without an adaptation strategy. So I would like to have this guy come and talk to us about it. Because that's the bottom line. I think, I didn't can't quite picture what he's recommending in terms of using the turnaround for the pier access. And he said modifying it to act as an abutment, so I guess, you can explain that.
Other questions from the board, comments? Eliza?
Well, it's important to make sure this pier is safe. I still want a light to walk down the ramp in the dark. So we're looking at the safety of this, but it so often feels unsafe walking down the ramp in the dark. So,
The ramp from the pier to the float?
the gang.
All right.
Is that the responsibility of the town of Yarmouth or the town of Shrewsbury?
An interesting question.
The ramp and the flow is Shebig.
Oh.
The pier is Yarmouth with 80% paid by Shebig.
And the light in question would sit sort of, well, right at the end of the pier. I don't think it would ever sit on the gangway.
Right.
Herb, did you have something to offer? You looked pensive. That's a good word.
Well, I can't imagine why CTC just can't flip the switch and try and know, they have all kinds of lights on that thing. Is this at times not loading on the ferry, or is this loading on ferry?
Oh, I can't imagine walking down with the light coming at me, but I think that
Well, it'd be on the side.
I just always found it curious that it's not better lighting really in the dark.
Yeah.
Just that.
That
I would
oh,
call that a separate topic from the stability and longevity
I
issues.
understood that concept, but
Carol?
yes. And the other thing is the current program we just applied for, and this project would be eligible for. I mean, that would also be a question for, I mean, think just. Funding, so $44,000. I'd like to know what we can. That's maybe less incentive for them because, I mean, it's not criticism, but they don't have so much
Skin in the game.
skin.
Other comments? So it sounds like it's a sense of the board to ask Mr. Johnson to attend our next meeting.
And maybe we could make it convenient for him.
We are,
so,
yeah.
Both schedule works.
Yes,
We talked about him coming on the 6th and leaving on the 8th.
he was happy with that. He preferred not to leave on the 9:15. Yes, David.
Yeah, just had a quick question. There was some discussion about extending the length of the ramp. And does that impact what we're talking about here? I couldn't really find any reference to it.
That would be separate from the stability of the pier per se. That would be a topic. So extending the ramp would mean moving the float, would mean resetting all of that anchoring mechanism. And it brings up the conversation that Coastal Water several years, which is improving that float to potentially add more parking space for commuter boats, in effect. Yarmouth is interested in that concept, or at least they have been in the past, because it would take pressure potentially off of their float, both in terms of people who occasionally park their punts on the Yarmouth float and shouldn't, and also Yarmouth would love to see us have a space for the ferry to land, but also for transient drop off and pickup on our float, as opposed to us using their float for the transient pickup. So that's a longer term conversation that would be under the auspices of the Joint Standing Committee, I would think.
And that was my question really is, does one impact the other, or are they really totally separate discussion?
And there's separate discussions, at least in the conversations that we've had with the JSC so far. We did ask Scott to start planting the seeds on their end for meeting soon to happen with the Joint Standing Committee as well. While we're there. Pam, I saw your hand up. Did you have a comment?
I just think it would be really easy to stick on, lights along the ramp with, maybe a $20 investment.
Okay.
Solar lights.
Thanks. All right, other comments from the public? All right, so we will see Mr. Johnson hopefully at our next meeting. Thank you all. And please bring any detailed questions regarding this proposal. There's a lot of money to be spending. To hear an update on the current and future improvements at the transfer station and take any necessary actions, there was a write-up in the packet. And also I see that Jeff is here. Mika, do you want to kick it off? Or?
So there was a memo written with, Jeff and I recently met and talked about the different alternative suggestions, things that could be improved or things that have already been done. One of which is Jeff taking the time to prepare the cans so it doesn't add an additional cost to us having Lionel Plan charge us, because in their price adjustments, they noticed that they're spending more time on the island prepping the cans. When they pull them out, they have to, fill the trash that falls out and then secure them. When they go to other municipalities, that's already done. And so that's something that Jeff has started doing. So then that way it is not an added cost to what is already a heavy cost for barging. So things like that have already been done to make small improvements. And then, several other things that have been mentioned in the memo being to pick up possibly the discussion of the brush dump and limiting how and when people can access it, potentially started charging people what that would look like, because that's a large investment. This year it was really difficult and we still haven't secured, having gone back and forth between Jeff and I with a couple of different people, and having a date to have them come out here to do the grinding, and then trying to get quotes for that being removed because it's overwhelmingly overflowing out there. So I think at this point, I would leave it to the board, ask the questions that you would have based on the memo that you read, and then Jeff could provide any feedback that he might have based on whatever you have for suggestions or comments or questions.
From the board, questions? Carol?
Well, I noticed the panel just terminated their paper bag. So I didn't know if you talked to other communities that are no longer doing the paper bag. In other words, find out what the downside is.
So the representative from Waste Zero Corporation, on a schedule, Beacon, myself, and her, you can imagine it's difficult. So I just sent you dates through September and October to see if any of those dates work. We'll contact her back, come out, and we'll have a conversation. It's still not pro or con, we're still just having a conversation. I've heard negatives, most of it is the bags are too lightweight, they break, they don't make a big heavy contractor bag, popular out here. So there's still questions and research to be done. It's still part of the process.
It might be worth calling them just because they're a pretty small town, so similar setup to us. It might be worth finding out why this work might not be relevant. And then I think on the brush dump, I would just encourage you to stay in communication with the climate action team, which is looking at the wildfire issue and wildfire risk, and there may be some options to handle the chips, with a burner or something that could help use the line. So I think they're pretty gung ho on that, and they're waiting to hear about grant application. Anyway, particularly Alder is the person that I would talk to him. And then, I think you also mentioned sort of, engineering services for kind of finding a new transfer station.
Well, it's whenever the current transfer station was designed, however many years ago, a lot's changed since then. Amazon didn't exist. The population of renters out here and the stuff they bring didn't exist. So I'm having a phone conversation with Brian Pierce from CDMR on Friday, to find out what it takes to get an engineering study, the cost. Or is there just a brief overview for him to come up what that cost would be for us looking forward for the next 25 to 50 years, somebody that's more knowledgeable in the state of the solid waste environment than just us. Say, this is where the industry is moving and going. This is how your station should or shouldn't be set up. So to get that information, again, having a conversation Friday at 2:00, to start and see what that entails. And if it's something we want to spend money on or not.
So I guess my thinking on that is at some point, I don't think it's a problem to have a conversation with an engineering firm, but we might want to put together an RFP for engineering services for this. Some town just recently had one up there for a transfer station kind of redesign. Because it's a big enough project, I think we want to we wouldn't just hire.
Oh, of course not. I just started the conversation.
Right, I think one of the things to sort of think through is we need to probably appropriate some money in the next fiscal year. And so trying to think sort of work out the timeline, seems like we want to have our PO early in 2025 in order to get an estimate for whatever it takes. Because we don't have any money right now to do an engineering.
No, correct. This is a conversation planning for the next budget. Yeah, it's not happening this year. We realize.
Yeah, so, but I mean, I think we should go through an RFP process this year so that we can hit the ground running on 2025, fiscal year 26. But, because it seems like we always get kind of behind on this, and if we kind of anticipate that we will appropriate some money, that's how I would approach it. And then I'm not that tuned in, but are you working, are you in the loop on what the state's been doing on the waste reduction work?
As far as payment back from the packaging industry,
Or just, they have a couple different programs. I just didn't know where we're at.
so the earliest is going to happen the last I heard 2027. It's packaging a lot of people still.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the waste diversion grant program, so we could explore whether or not we might be eligible for one of the waste diversion grants, because I think we could potentially use some of that money.
So they had a couple recently, but the topics that they listed weren't topics that qualified that we weren't doing. So I just kind of pushed this on.
Yeah, I guess my hope this year would be maybe we could get further position that we can appropriate money at town meeting and start actually having an engineering study.
Right, I mean, that in the big picture is, does the shed stay here? Does the traffic flow change? Is safety an issue with the brush dump and everything around the facility? With Harvester Gardens today and Chuck Barney also composting. I know it's been tried up here before, it failed. But if we have a central facility where people bring in their trash and their compost in one location, will that help reduce the amount we send off island? Garbage to Garden is bumping it up to their CEO to see if they're interested, i.e. shipping it off in like a big fish container crate. Pallet driven, they service one stop for 400 households and they're driving around. So, if that would be in there.
Do they do any islands?
They don't go out in the islands. It's operated.
But do they have garbage garden on any of the islands?
Only Peaks. Peaks just started their own new one. Tim Hamilton is giving the information, that process that they went through. It'd be neat if we could just do it locally with Chuck Barney, because then we keep it in-house, no transportation costs. So maybe we come up with a municipality buy your kitchen garbage disposal containers at a discounted price. 3 or 4 containers at the dump. I call Chuck when it's full, he comes out with his tractor, takes it away. He's interested in that, and he can have conversations to see where it goes. Clean Harbors is calling me with a quote to get rid of the 20 inches of sand or muck, whatever the bottom holding tanks, since Penn Jackson won't remove that. So I'll have that information by mid-September meeting as well.
And what about a hazardous waste pickup?
So that next year. Haven't got any specific dates on that. Tomorrow's phone call to the gentleman. We currently have enough item money in the budget to just continue taking the bits and pieces we get at the transfer station, and pay to get them. Now that more diligent and giving people suggestions on how to get rid of stuff. For instance, today, 3 aerosol cans. Take a box, hold your aerosol can down, spray it into the box, and now that's an empty can instead of a full can. You can dispose of it. Dilute things, such and such. So the amount of hazardous waste coming into the dump is less, but it will still cost to get rid of what we will acquire. Yeah.
I was, it's been a while since we've done a household hazardous waste collection.
Right, so one of the survey questions we're working on the townwide survey to get feedback is dealing with that question. Would you be willing to pay a fee to get rid of your hazardous waste? Because what the volume of material you get will be more than what is allowed in that budget. If people are willing to pay to help get rid of it, then we can receive more, get rid of more. When I spoke to Jim last year, $6,000 in a budget to service about 31 people.
That's based on some statistical
If
average they have.
if each person brought, because they charge X number of dollars for what they call a unit. It was 20 pounds or 10 gallons. And so if 31 people brought 20 pounds and 10 gallons, you hit that $6,000 budget a year.
I guess historically, I didn't think it was cost prohibitive.
Change.
Well, I guess.
I think the cost has changed quite a bit. The other part of it is,
We don't have the hazardous waste people from town public works.
when the employee that was here prior to Chuck was licensed, so to speak, to handle hazardous waste. The public works that we had did not, so they don't have the same level of knowledge and qualification as far as how to dispose things, how to mix things, how to combine things to make it more cost effective. And that's something that Jeff has been looking into in terms of how could it be more cost effective to dispose it rather than compile it all and have it be a significantly large sum of money to dispose all of it. With the ordinance, it is every other year for hazardous waste, and so there was one last summer or at the beginning of the summer, I don't remember the exact date. So we are coming up to doing another one and figuring out what that would entail.
Carol,
Well,
yeah, Liza.
right. It's such an enormous cost to the town that I don't think the public has a good grasp of. So it really points to how important all of these options are to lessen the burden on the taxpayer, and really the town. But it really points out how important it is that we have a committee looking at creative ideas, because to bring the cost down is going to take lots of different directions, from disposing hazardous waste more cost effectively to how do we get things out of that waste stream that could be recycled here, if we could be burning some of this stuff safely. So it really points to a couple of things, the importance of what we're doing, and thank you. But also the need to have this committee running to support looking at ideas and supporting what is going to work. So we should all get up there and get more people onto that.
The other thing that raises the cost is barging.
Right.
They come out, they run their event, there's then no barge for them to get back. So now they're into a 2-day time frame for labor and such, because the tides. So everything just exponentially grows. They're gonna come out with their event team and run it. Because then they can't get off the island until the next day. So they're just going back and home.
But that's the same problem we have with all sorts of contractors who come out as part of the,
But it raises the cost, which is not.
we have to deal with. Yeah. Carol?
Yeah, I'm not to be the divorce, but, in the past, we've had a 1-day pickup, and we've had a window of 3 hours that people have to bring their stuff up, and it gets taken off in the same day. You know,
On plan.
I don't remember it being, I mean, maybe things have changed, but I don't remember it being cost prohibitive, and I just want to, as I'm working on groundwater work, I really am concerned if we start charging people and making it, adding a fee to it, people are gonna dump it down the septic system, they're gonna throw it in the trash, and so I just want to express that concern, because I think it's a point of value to the town and groundwater protection to offer as a waste pickup for the community. The cost is spread out, around the community, when we think about what the cost is per household. Rather than asking people to pay, I think that some people won't pay, even if it's just philosophically, but they might dump it. And so that's my concern.
Good.
And I think it's been a while since we've had, it's been years since we've had a hazardous waste pickup. And at least the prior ones were very short term, on a weekend, part of the day, get your stuff up there in this window if you want to get rid of it. And, so I do think, I'd be happy to help with that, if there's anything I can do to help, but I feel strongly that we should probably, personally, I prefer not to charge for that reason.
So when I spoke to you previously, it was you're allocated your 10 gallons or 20 pounds. If you wanted to give more than that, then there was an additional fee. So if you came in with 50 pounds of stuff, fisherman has got all his oil from everything. Okay, you want to get rid of more than what the limit is, now you have to pay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jeff, I have a question. Are you finished, Carol? I've been down looking at the wood dump occasionally recently. Do you think we're getting close to having to shut it down if we don't get a chipper out here soon?
I don't have that knowledge to make that call. The hard part is the individuals we're dealing with very timely with their responses. So one gentleman just was gung ho for it. It took a week to get an answer back from him to say he wasn't interested. Another individual, yes, I'm gonna do it, and we still haven't heard back from him with the price. So it's just hard getting information from these individuals.
Is it the thing that we've added on, which is the concept of hauling the wood chips off the island? Is that what's slowing them down, do you think? Too busy?
Communicating.
Yeah. I'm concerned that the closer we get to actually filling up the space, the more difficult it's gonna be to get that piece of equipment in with an excavator to move around. And I'm terrified that we're gonna have to shut it down.
I don't have the knowledge to make that decision.
Yeah. Carol,
Is the prior contractor that we had not interested in that?
he has said he's interested in coming back. But we've asked him for a quote. And I think there's some invoicing issues from the past. Is that correct? Where
He's been hard to communicate with. And I finally spoke with him. He told me he was gonna call me back on Monday, and I still haven't spoken with him. There is some previous last year's invoicing issues that I'm still also trying to square away, so it's kind of several different things that are stacked up with that particular vendor who claims to be interest, but there's just lack of the follow to proceed with any, and it's also difficult to stress the importance of how badly we need it at this point. So, yeah, it's been a process. Hopefully, we'll hear back something soon. But at this point, it would just be nice to have somebody out here to do that.
All right. Think if I can help with that? If we need phone calls,
Maybe.
Other comments relative to the update from the transfer station?
Just say thanks.
Yeah.
Jeff is doing a lot of work and I really
I would echo that. The state of the place and the state of all the advanced long-term looking down the road kind of work is highly appreciated. So thank you for that. Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
I just have two
Yeah.
comments, so, just two brief comments to make. So one is, Jeff is, looking in and trying to figure out some time frame and, finalize a quote to do maintenance on all of the compactors, which have not been done. So that is something that we will be recommending to come out of the building, reserve account. So that's something that will probably be coming down in front of you for a vote in the near future. And then the only other thing that I think is worth mentioning, as of October 1st, Gail will be officially retiring and Jeff will be taking over as the primary at the transfer station.
All right. Certainly appreciate Gail's years of service and everything that Jeff's bringing to the table looking forward. Okay, thank you all. Comments from the public on that topic? All right, seeing none. Moving on to other business. Does anybody on the board have any other business items to suggest? All right, seeing none. Vika, any communications to report?
I do have a couple of different communications to report. The first one is the Grinnell family hand delivered some paperwork to me that I said I would share under communications, but it is something that will be brought to you most likely at the next agenda item for a discussion. This is relevant to land swap that was done a couple of years ago that they found out wasn't buildable, and now they're asking the town to more or less swap the land again. They were asked to provide some additional information which in the packet that they provided, the information was not in it. So I followed up and asked for it, and I did receive an email verbally reiterating what was provided, but they didn't want to put the cost in doing an actual analysis from a wetland specialist. And so he did come in here tonight to see if it was going to be discussed. And I did say I will share it under communications because it was delivered to me after the agenda was already put together. And so that is something that you will have in front of you at the next meeting.
Other?
Well, just from the last time that came up, didn't we suggest they work with the code enforcement officer?
I think they seem to be adamant at this point to go in this direction.
Have they worked?
So in speaking with him just within the last couple of days suggested that, and so to my knowledge, that has not happened. So I can follow up and see if that's something that they can do prior to you having it as a discussion again.
That'd be very helpful. Other business items or other communications items, Beacon?
I received a communication today in reference to Bennett's Cove asking for documentation, which like I mentioned earlier, the only thing that hasn't been shared was in the last couple of days, CMP related stuff. I did receive information from the assessor within the last couple of days relevant to the not South Shore Drive, Jenks Road survey being back. So that's something that will be up for you for discussion in the next couple of weeks. But I can't think of anything else that I think would be worth mentioning to the board.
All right. Thank you. Next item, Alexa.
I just want to mention something that really would be under other business. I want to just acknowledge the fact that Ralph and Kim organized a fundraiser called Towers to Tunnels, which is a national organization. It was a first-time event. There was a high percentage of the EMTs and firefighters and community members from Shameen. Almost 300 runners. They raised $30,000. It was really, it happened in Portland. Looking forward to another event, but that was an enormous effort and a lot of nice recognition for firefighters and rescue personnel. This fund has supported 130 homes since it started, paying off mortgages or providing homes for people in the fire and rescue business. Anyway, it was well done. It was well organized, and I just wanted to give some recognition from the town about that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to approve the minutes from August 21 and August 26.
Can I mention one more thing real quick?
Please.
We did commit taxes. That's something that I should have put in my TA report, but we didn't have things. Or I don't know. It's been a wild couple of days, but taxes have been committed. The mill rate is exactly at what it was predicted that it would be, which is kind of mind blowing. So it's 10.725, 10.75. So not a big surprise from what it was during the budget season, and the tax bills have been sent out. Some of you probably have already received yours. So.
Yeah, I guess maybe communication. Did we receive the stuff from Weston Sampson?
No.
I followed up with an email, and I did receive an email late this evening saying that good evening, yes, all deliverables will be forthcoming shortly. So
6:33 p.m. Frustrating, they were due to have it today. We told them we needed it today, so we can talk about that next week. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the minutes from August 21 and August 26, I believe they were both in the packet. Is that correct? Or were they sent out to us?
They were sent out.
Yeah, yeah. Is there such a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes of August 21st and 26th,
Okay.
2004.
Is there a second? Second by Richard. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. All right, items to be placed on a future agenda. I have, Eliza will have feedback from a survey to talk about on a future agenda. The infrastructure management plan for coastal waters maintenance. We'll need to vote to approve that at some point. Mr. Johnson will be coming out on our September 18th meeting to talk about the Cousins Pier and the study that we first touched on tonight. The Grinnell land issue and the Jenks Road survey. Those are the items I wrote down tonight during tonight's meeting. Carol?
I don't know if it's an agenda item, but we will need the participants on Social Drive.
Yeah, I mentioned that in my TA report. I had reached out to MEMA to try to have them come out, called back, said that they would try to coordinate a meeting and reach out to me with some dates. I have not heard back. And so I was gonna follow up towards the end of this week to try to see if there was anything else that they could share with us.
So I guess it's not really an agenda item, but by the next meeting. It's an agenda item. Maybe the town
Hopefully.
administrator can do it.
Yeah, hopefully.
I don't want to forget.
Yeah.
And then we also had agreed to meet with Cassie when she's here in October, and that's not that far away.
Yes.
So.
Ready? With that, would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Richard. Is there a second? Second by Eliza. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Nice work.
I don't know.
Time to sit down.